Trigger warning, if you don't do good with gruesome cases, I'd leave now. The year is 2010. We're in Sweden in the small town of Skara. Something unspeakable is about to happen, something that would haunt an entire country. And no one would carry that weight longer or more painfully than a 9-year-old little girl named Jamie Lee. But to backtrack to 1978, when in Sweden, a baby by the name of Jimmy Daniel was born. He later changed his name to Isakin Duprat, and he had a very tough upbringing. From what we know, which isn't much, but it sounds like even throughout his childhood, there were signs that he would more than likely be heading down the wrong path. It also wasn't uncommon for him to be constantly in and out of different mental institutions, and he did go down the wrong path. As he grew up, he got involved with the wrong people, started committing petty crimes, and got in trouble with the law several times for theft and other offenses. By 2009, when he was in his 30s, he found himself at a psychiatric clinic, and it was there that he met a woman called, I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly. I've watched so many videos about this case and I'm trying my best. Her name is Hela Christensen, and the two of them had a ton in common. They both struggled with mental health issues. They both had a criminal history and previous past convictions. Both of them were also parents. Hela had multiple children who lived with their father. She did not have custody of any of them. And Isakin had a daughter that he stayed in touch with. So the two of them start a relationship. They both get out of the psychiatric clinic, and sooner than later, Hela is introduced to Isakin's daughter, Jamie Lee. And Jamie adored Hela. They had a very close relationship. She definitely saw her more as a second mother rather than just her father's girlfriend. But because she loved her so much, it only made it that much harder for Jamie to sit through and witness the constant arguments that happened between her and her dad. Isakin and Hela arguing loudly and passionately was a common thing, and when they got into it, they got into it. It was never just a disagreement. Even if it was something that started off small, it escalated into a lot of yelling and throwing things around the room and saying things to each other that you should never say to a person that you claim to love. In regards to the dynamic, Jamie has described the relationship between her dad and his girlfriend as a toxic horror movie one. And it sounds like Jamie did live primarily with her biological mother, but she was often at Isakin and Hela's apartment to spend time with both of them as well. And growing up with Isakin as her dad was very different for Jamie, because as a child, it felt like Jamie Lee lived in two separate worlds. She described her mother's home to be loving and normal, but when it came time for her to visit her dad, she experienced the dark side. There was never any light in his apartment, and I mean that literally and figuratively. Isakin had a fascination with the devil, and his apartment was decorated with pictures and drawings of the devil and demons. Jamie's time spent with him felt like a lot of psychological manipulation, horror movies, and brainwashing sessions, because Isakin would often talk about the dark side and about how he wanted Jamie to experience it with him. He was constantly playing scary, gory movies that he would force her to watch. Another example is that he would want her to see the demons and the spirits that he said were watching her, and he would make her stare at something in the room asking if she could see them. She would say no, and remember, this is a little girl. She would say no, but then Isakin would encourage her to try harder, to think harder, until she would agree that she saw them. One time when she was little as well, she was sleeping over at his place. They were both in her bedroom. He was sitting on her bed, and they were about to go to sleep when he looked at her and asked her, "What would you do if you heard me calling your name from the kitchen right now?" You would realize that it wasn't me sitting behind you right now. It would be something or someone else. Saying that it would be like a demon actually sitting behind her if her dad was in reality in the kitchen. And Jamie was like, "What? Dad, don't say that." And Isakin just thought it was hilarious. He just started laughing. Jamie Lee has also said, like, it felt like her father wanted her to be afraid of him or of something else or of both. And don't get me wrong, she would say that she loved her father and she thought that he loved her back as well. More than anything in the world, the two of them did have some happy memories together. But there was just this dark side about him that he would talk about all the time, and that kind of just took over everything in his life. And when something happened that would trigger him and make him angry, Jamie knew that she had valid reasons to be afraid of her dad. She learned to be scared of her father at a very, very young age. She has said that when he got angry, it was like his eyes would go black and she would look at him and all she would see was anger and evil. She didn't even recognize her dad when that happened. November 12th of 2010 was an ordinary Friday in Skara, and the day started off like any other. Isakin and Hela woke up around noon. They got dressed. They went out shopping together. When they got home later in the day, Jamie Lee went over to see them. And as soon as she went over there, she could tell immediately that something was off. Isakin wasn't speaking. Hela wasn't speaking. She wasn't even speaking to Jamie, which was very, very weird because remember, the two of them had a pretty close relationship. Jamie Lee sat down and Hela started preparing food and cooking in the kitchen, and when the food was ready, she handed it over to her and said, quote, "Enjoy this. It's the last meal I will ever cook for you because Isaacin is going to," end quote. Chills went down Jamie Lee's spine, but what was she supposed to do? She was 9 years old. She was scared of her dad and also confused as to what really was going on. Jamie's mom ended up picking her up from the apartment that night, thankfully, but that was the last time that she would ever see Hela alive again. Once it was just the two of them in the apartment, Hela went over to lie down on a mattress to rest. Isaacin then took a nap in the kitchen, walked over to Hela and sat on her shoulders, and then he slit her throat. Hela did not have time to resist. She didn't have time to fight back. She was gone almost immediately. But he did not stop there. And again, trigger warning, very graphic. He didn't stop there because then he removed a lot of body parts into separate pieces, including the head. He then walked over to the kitchen area and he cooked them. He prepared them to eat them. He fried them in a frying pan and then he ate them. He ate a lot of them. The man who had once been Jamie Lee's dad had become something else entirely. And shockingly, after he was done committing the crime and after he was done eating, he called the police to tell them what he had just done, saying that once they show up, they wouldn't have to use any force to arrest him because he was as calm as could be. He also stated, quote, "I want to do the right thing for myself. What I have done now, I have no idea that I actually done it, but I have woken up," end quote. Police officers were then dispatched to the apartment where he was taken into custody. When they questioned him, he confessed to everything, saying that he was a dangerous person when he was off of his medication, and he knew that. And he described the events that happened like a movie, saying that he didn't know why he did it, only that he felt like there were multiple people in the apartment at the time, and it felt like a movie scene to him. I will spare you the details of that crime scene, but whatever you're imagining in your head, make it 10 times worse. I mean, there are not pictures of the crime scene online, at least that I could find, thankfully, but 9-year-old Jamie Lee found out about what her father did in a way that no child, no person ever should. She accidentally saw the newspaper and she stared at a word that she did not yet understand. It was her mom that told her about Hela first, and when she told her that she was gone, her entire world came crashing down because she loved her. She loved her like a second mom. And Jamie Lee, as soon as her mother told her, she knew that her father had done it. She knew that her father was behind it. She had seen them fight. She had seen him angry. She had heard the things that he would yell and talk about, and she just knew. So she asked her mom if it was her dad, and her mom just said yes, refusing to give her any details. It was when she saw the headlines the next day that she realized that things were so much worse and so much more brutal and gruesome than she could have ever imagined. Quote, "I accidentally saw the newspapers. I did not know what the word meant, but when I was 13, I read some articles and then I understood what the word meant. But by then, my dad had me wrapped around his finger. He made himself the good person and his girlfriend was the villain. He brainwashed me to believe that," end quote. So like I said, Isaacin was arrested almost immediately and he fully confessed. The following day, a forensic psychiatric evaluation was ordered and those results showed that he was very, very mentally ill. They also showed that with his illnesses, he suffered from a ton of side effects, one of those being hallucinations. When police searched the apartment, they found all the evidence that they needed to be able to prove that everything that Isaacin had confessed to was true, along with other eerie items that he kept inside of his apartment, such as a painting of a portrait of a man who had been feeding something dark in himself for a very long time. In 2011, he was found guilty and committed to a psychiatric facility rather than a conventional prison. From inside that institution, rather than reflecting on what he had done, what he kept his attention on was continuing to pull at Jamie Lee like a puppet master. He truly believed that him and his daughter Jamie had a purpose related to the dark side, and he would tell her, "Even if you don't see what I see now, you eventually will, and the demons will guide you, and you will become more powerful than I am." Those are the things that he was saying to her ever since she was a child, and he continued to talk about the same things even after he was convicted. Quote, "My dad definitely brainwashed me and had done so since I was 3 years old. He has always exposed me to the dark side with the devil and demons and evil spirits, and that has always been a part of my reality, a part of my everyday life," end quote. Inside the institution, Isaacin Dubret continued to be the same person he had always been. In December of 2011, he became engaged to another patient, a woman called Michelle. Michelle, a woman known to the media as Vampire Woman, who had also been convicted, and an inmate at the same psychiatric hospital. Together, the two of them mockingly would make blogs and talk about their crimes like it was something funny, it was something that they were proud of from the hospital's computer, with absolutely no regret in regards to the terrible things that both of them had done, which then led to a motion in the Swedish parliament to prohibit internet use for patients inside of those Swedish psychiatric institutions. In 2017, Isaacson made headlines again after selling voodoo dolls and other art containing bodily fluids. He was selling them online from inside the hospital. The voodoo dolls were made from toilet paper, toothpicks, and sewing thread, with the bodily fluids used to keep them all together. Meanwhile, his daughter Jamie Lee watched everything from the outside, trying to also heal from all the trauma that she had. She still struggled to understand why her dad was the way that he was, and she struggled heavily with anxiety and depression for many, many years going into her adulthood. Jamie did not see her father for 2 years after the crime, but she went down the wrong path a little bit because she didn't know how to deal with everything that she was feeling. And at that time, when she was at her most vulnerable, her dad managed to reel her back in. Because she wasn't being the best version of herself, her mom wasn't supporting the behavior that she was showing, but her dad was there to say, hey, I will love you, I will support you, and I hope that you grow up to be like me. So throughout her teenage years, she kept in contact with him until one incident where he became completely out of control and scared her so bad, showing Jamie that he had not changed. Then she cut off contact with him completely and focused on getting better herself. I think the little girl in her was clinging to this idea, this version of him that she needed him to be, because even after the crime, she still saw him as her dad, even though every headline and every newspaper was rightfully so painting him out to be this evil monster. It was October of 2024, 14 years after the crime, when Jamie Lee decided that she was ready to face her dad again. She walked into the facility to face her father. This was on camera. This is all filmed. You can watch it. Quote, he started crying and hugged me and seemed happy to see him. I so wanted to believe that he had changed and that he had become the dad that I always wanted and needed, end quote. But the man that she was hoping to find was not the man that was sitting across from her. He was still holding on to the same beliefs that he always had, in my opinion, very, very clearly mentally unwell still. And Jamie was older now. It's actually such a sad interview to watch because you can tell just like from what she's saying to him, the way that she's looking at him, that she wants him to be better so badly. She wants a relationship with her father so badly. And he's just, there's something wrong. Jamie was also 23 years old, I believe, and she just knew that this relationship was with her father, and dealing with him was just not something that she could carry with her for the rest of her life. In that meeting, her dad tells her, quote, you are extremely brave. And she responds with, quote, no, I just loved you. Which is so sad. I have goosebumps because you can tell that she wanted to love him so badly. After meeting with him that time, Jamie made up her mind that she would never, ever in a million years let him be a part of her life again. Jamie Lee is now a mother. She is healing. She's working on herself, and she has spoken out about her story publicly multiple times. And I'll end this video with a quote from her that I find fitting. Quote, sometimes I just want to go back in time and hug myself. My goal with sharing my story has always been to make people realize and believe that anyone can make it, no matter where they come from, no matter how broken they are. If you suffer from PTSD, if you suffer from trauma, I believe that everyone on this earth can get out of any darkness. Yeah, it's horrible. That is all from me today. Let me know if you've heard of this case before. And yeah, thank you for spending time with me today. Hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.